Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. I'm happy to be here today. I hope you're having a pretty good week and that the rest of it will be just as exciting. I have a passage I'd like to share with you today, one that you've probably heard before if you've been in church very much. If you haven't, well, it'll be new to you. It comes from the book of Revelations, chapter 3, and verse 20. Reads this way: "Look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and we will share a meal together as friends." Now, you always have to be careful with taking one verse out of context of what it was intended to say. So I want to back up just a little bit and say that this is part of a section in the book of Revelations where there are various words to the churches. And this is the word to the church at Laodicea, which it says is a church that's neither hot nor cold. And it's really saying they're just lukewarm. They're tepid. They're neither excited about God, nor are they turned off by God. They're just sort of non-committal, in the middle. I'll show up and see what happens. And a lot of churches today are like that. Now, I'm not going to pretend to condemn them or understand them, but there are a lot of churches where, when we talk about ministry, they haven't done much for a long time. And they probably started out wanting to. After all, when you look at these older buildings, it took a lot of money and a lot of effort, a lot of people to get those things built. But somehow over the years, they've just sort of slid by, did enough to pay the bills, and now they find themselves in real trouble. And that story gets repeated time after time after time. But it's not just churches, it's also individuals who start out with a real excitement for God, and then over time they get busy with other things. Maybe they get disappointed. Maybe God doesn't do what they want him to do. And so they just kind of show up occasionally now, when one time they were the first ones at the door. You see, it's easy to get mediocre. Even in our workplace, it's easy to get mediocre. You get to the point where you just do what you have to do to get by and collect the paycheck and go home. Now, they say that a lot about, quote, government workers, but it's probably true of every place. You just do what you have to do. I remember years ago I worked in a factory when I was in high school, and this guy who was a forklift driver, we were supposed to get off at 3 o'clock, but after 2:30 he wouldn't do anything because he had to be the first one there at 3 o'clock to punch his card out. So if you needed something done, you needed some material brought or something moved, you better catch him before 2:30. Now, because he had been injured there in the plant, they gave him the forklift job, and so he was pretty well insulated from getting fired. But everybody knew that by the half hour before we quit, you're not going to find him. I don't know where he went, but he just got mediocre. And that can happen to you and to me. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, you know about getting mediocre. A lot of people who have problems, well, I'm going to work on that tomorrow. What that really means is, I don't want to work on it. I'm content to let things go as they are, and I'll figure it out later. Or, usually, I won't bother to figure it out, because we get satisfied. And when we get satisfied, then we are subject to all of the strains and the powers and the frustrations of living in this world. Because this world doesn't really care whether you are satisfied or not. So, this passage gives us a different picture. Now, after there are some words to this church, it ends up by saying what I just read. Look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in, and we will share a meal together as friends. Now, what's interesting about this is we have the image of God standing at the door to our lives, and knocking. Now, that's kind of goofy, because God could just barge in through the door. He doesn't have to stand on the outside. He's God. For heaven's sakes, he can do anything. And he can do it more powerfully than anything else. But he says he doesn't work that way. He stands outside of our lives and knocks and waits for us to invite him in. Now, I've had a lot of people in my career as a pastor tell me, well, if God will just do such and such, then I'll start coming to church. No, we're not doing it that way. That's not what God wants. He's not an afterthought or a if you do thought. He wants to be the first thought. He wants to be in first place in our lives. And he's not going to settle for second. So he says here, I'll stand outside and wait. How long will God wait to reach somebody's heart? As long as it takes. I mean, as they used to say, he's got time. Maybe we don't, but he does. So he'll wait until you're willing, or we are willing, to invite him in. Now, what's so really, really neat about this passage is it says, if you open the door, I'll come in, and we'll share a meal together as friends. Anthropologists tell us that eating together is a universal sign of friendship, which means that we don't really eat with people we don't like, or we're not friends with, or strangers. Now, you think about this for a minute. You go to a restaurant and there's an empty chair, but somebody else is sitting there. What do? You just sit down and eat? No, you say, excuse me, do you mind if I sit down and eat? You are invading their space as if they own the chair. Well, they don't. The restaurant does. And if somebody invites you over and you don't really like them that much, you'll just say, I can't make it. You see, friendship, as you and I understand it as human beings, is a small window into the kind of friendship that God wants with you and me. He wants this close, intimate relationship that he calls us and we call him friend. Well, maybe you've already invited him in. Maybe you haven't. You certainly can, because he's still there, knocking on the door, waiting for you to open it up. Well, thanks for listening today. If there's a prayer concern or a need we can help with, please let us know. We'll do everything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. So until tomorrow, God bless you. I'll talk to you again.